Namaste, aloha. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita as it is class. My name is Janapati Das. Please accept my respects, everyone. Let me offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Jagat Guru, Siddhaswarapananda Paramhamsa Srila Prabhupada, and to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are continuing with chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and let's start our class with some chanting, so please join along. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prishtayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramhamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prishtayate Vaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhaktavinda Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhaktavinda Haribol Nitai Gaur Haribol. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaruna Swarupaya Radhakrishna Prasthayate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we are reading through the conclusion, Perfection of Renunciation, chapter 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And Krishna had been elaborating a little bit more about people in the modes, different modes of material nature, and the kinds of activities that they do in those material modes. Text 13 and 14. Panchayatayantani mahabaho karanani nibodame shanke kritante proktani shidaye sarvekamananam adhishtanam tatakata karnam cha pritag vidam vividas cha pritak cheshta daivam chavratra panchamam. Pancha, 5. So pancha, the number 5, where we also get the word pancha tattva, the 5 Vishnu tattva of Lord Chaitanya. Pancha tattva. Pancha, 5. Etani, all these, Mahabaho, almighty armed one, Karanani, cause, Niboda, just understand, me, from me, Shanke, in the Vedas. Kritante, after performance, Proktani, said, Shidaye, perfection, Sarva, all. Kamanam, actuated. Atishtanam, place. Tata, also. Krita, karta, worker. Karanam, cha, and instruments. Pratak, vidam, different kinds. Vividaha, cha, varieties. Pratak, separately. Cheshta, endeavor. Davaya, daivam, the supreme. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Atra, here. Panchamam, 5. Translation, text 13 and 14. O mighty armed Arjuna, learn from me of the 5 factors which bring about the accomplishment of all action. These are declared in Shanka philosophy to be the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. Purport: a question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that the person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reactions to work? So, very good question. So how is it that the worker in Krishna consciousness is not getting the results of karmic reaction by the activities? If one accrues karmic reaction from the activities that they do in the material world. The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. He says that there are 5 causes for all activities and for success in all activity. And one should know these 5 causes. Shankya means the stock of knowledge. S-T-A, like S-T-A-L-K, like stalk, like a stem of a tree or a flower bush. It's very interesting. And Vedanta is the final stock of knowledge accepted by all leading acharyas. Even Shankara accepts the Vedanta Sutra as such. Therefore, such authority should be consulted. So what they're stating is that the Vedanta is the conclusion of the Vedanta Sutra is the conclusion of all knowledge, and therefore, whether you're an impersonalist or a personalist, this is true. However, the conclusions of what the Vedanta philosophy means, Shankaracharya, through his own interpretation, but the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra, Vyasadeva, gave his purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The ultimate will is invested in the supersoul, as is stated in the Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi. The ultimate will is invested in the supersoul, as is stated in the Gita, Sarvasha Chaham Shridi. He is engaging in everyone in certain activities. Acts done under his direction from within yield no reaction, either in this life or in the life after death. The instruments of action are the senses, and by senses the soul acts in various ways. And for each and every action, there is a different endeavor, but all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. The Supreme Lord is a super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Supersoul situated within the heart is naturally not bound by any activities. So Krishna, Krishna and the expansion of the Supersoul is fulfilling the desires and providing the different activities for the living entity. So even if a person wants materialistic desires, the Supersoul is the one who's providing these kinds of desires. But this is not the same thing as acting in Krishna consciousness. Acting in the will of the Supersoul of the Krishna, Krishna provides that as well. But that is not activities done in the material field. It is a transcendental activity. Those who in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the Supreme Will, the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has dovetailed their will to Krishna. Krishna is the source of all things, and therefore, acting under their will, they're not responsible for the activities, the material karmic reaction of the activities that they engage in. Text 15, Sharira van manopiryat karma parabate naraha nayam va viparitam va panchayate tashahetavaha. Sharira, body, vak, speech, manobihi, by the mind, yat, anything, karma, work, parabate, prarabate, begins, nara, a person, nayayam, right, va, or, viparitam, the opposite, va, or, pancha, 5, ete, all these, tasha, its, hetava, causes. Text 15, whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. The words right, and Bhaktivedanta puts these in quotes, right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is done in terms of the prescribed directions in the scriptures, and wrong work is done against the principles of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. So very interesting, the definition of what is right and what is wrong. There is relative, what people conceive as right action and wrong action, but if they are not following under the directions of the scriptures, it is actually wrong, no matter what socially acceptable kind of thing it might be. But the 5 factors, actually I want to go back to the 5 factors here, is the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's see if it gets into it a little bit more. So the 5 factors, the place of action, where the activity is being done, the performer, which is us, the senses of how we're engaging in the senses, the endeavor, how we're going to go about doing that, and the ultimately supersoul. Is it, I guess you could say, is it for Krishna or not for Krishna? But the supersoul is still providing, these results according to the relationship to Krishna. Text 16. Tatra ivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tuyaha pashyati akrita buddhitvan na sa pashyati durmatihi. Tatra, there, evam, certainly, sati, being thus, kartaram, of the worker, atmanam, the supersoul, kevalam, only, tu, but, yaha, anyone, pashyati, sees, akrita buddhit, vat, due to unintelligence. That's interesting. Akrita buddhit, vat. The word buddhi is intelligence, but obviously these other things have to do with unintelligence. Na, never, sa, he, pashyati, sees, durmatihi, foolish. Translation, text 16. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Yeah, there's plenty of people who are like this, I'm doing this, and, you know, there's a lot to be said about that, actually, how people enact in the material world. Either they think they have more power to manipulate and control situations when they realize that actually they're not even in control of anything. Circumstances, the karmic reaction of the material world, the 3 modes of material nature, all of this prakriti, all this energy that's going on, and we are just a little living entity inside this field of activity that's engaging in all this thing. And we think we are so powerful that we, because maybe karmically we might be able to get a lot of things, we have control over these things. But once again, these things, there's a not knowing, understanding that the place of action, the performer, that's us. You got that part right. The senses which we have to work through in the endeavor, and our relationship with Krishna and the super soul, which is giving all things. So thinking you're doing it and not the super soul is what's really actually considered to be not very intelligent. But they're also stating, Krishna is also stating here that the not really considering what's really going on in a deeper sense. Foolish person cannot understand that the super soul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor, and the senses, the final cause is the supreme, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the 4 material causes, but the supreme efficient cause as well. One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the instrument. Yeah. Text 17. Yasha nanhan krito babo, buddhir yasha na lipiyate. Hatvapi sai mal lokan, nahanti na nibayate. Yasha, of one who, na, never, ahankritaha, false ego, bhavaha, nature, buddhi, intelligence, yasha, one who, na, never, nibyate, is attached, hatva api, even killing, saha, he, iman, this, lokan, world, na, never, hanti, kills, na, never, nibayate, becomes entangled. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled. Though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, nor is he bound by his actions. Well, it's a very powerful statement. He's here talking to Krishna. He's saying that if you went through this whole rigmarole of in the first chapter of telling me all these things materialistically, bound by your false ego, why you shouldn't be fighting in this war. And your intelligence was entangled because you were attached, you were thinking through the false ego that I am Arjuna, these are my kinsmen, I should not be fighting them. But he's saying here, though, if you are not motivated by the false ego, but by your duty to Krishna, your duty, your expectation of what you're supposed to do in this material world as a spirit soul, your service to Krishna, to reinstate your relationship with Krishna, that's true intelligence, that's true buddhi. It's not entangled, you're not bewildered, you have a very clear, you are steadfast in your determination. And although you may go out and you're going to go out there and kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, you're not bound by that activity. You were saying that it's going to be a sinful activity to do this, but it's not actually going to be a sinful activity if it's done in service to me, because this is just they're dressed. You are not really the slayer, and you are not bound by the karmic reactions of this. In fact, activities done in the service of Krishna is kind of like stated that my spiritual master said, it's like unplugging the fan. The fan of karmic reaction is constantly moving because we are constantly feeding it, we're constantly engaging in it. Activities in Krishna consciousness, and there are many ways, offering our food, chanting Krishna's names, and giving our life in the activities and our duties to Krishna. We unplug the fan. We may be doing all kinds of things. We may be accidentally killing other living entities' bodies, just like Arjuna has to go out and do. But there is no karmic reaction to that. In fact, actually, those people are benefited. They are liberated by being part of this activity. Now, it's not to say, once again, Bhaktivedanta makes this point that, well, if an activity in Krishna consciousness, I could just eat meat or run a slaughterhouse. No, because Krishna says that he does not accept meat. So there are, you can't be like using a faulty logic in this kind of thing. So there are activities that are done in our service to Krishna, and we are not bound by the actions. In this verse, the Lord informs Arjuna that the desire not to fight arises from false ego. The desire not to fight rises from false ego. So that's quite opposite of what Arjuna was originally thinking. He's thinking, it is actually false ego to be like, I want this kingdom, I'm going to enjoy this kingdom, even though he wasn't really attached to the kingdom, right? He was trying to do what he thought was right, and it was a justified war, and the kingdom just happened to come along with it, But actually, Krishna is saying the fact that you want to go off and not do this duty is actually bound by the idea that you think that you're actually your body. Arjuna thought himself to be the doer of action, but he does not consider the supreme sanction within and without. If he does not know that the super sanction is there, why should he act? But one who knows the instrument of work, himself as the worker, and the Supreme Lord as the supreme sanctioner, is perfect in doing everything, such a person is never in illusion. Right, so this is basically just stating what Krishna already said, that if you have the knowledge of all these things and that Krishna is the supreme sanctioner of all these things, then you are not in illusion. You're actually right on track. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or a lack of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Supersoul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though killing does not kill, nor is he ever affected with the reaction of such a killing. When a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he's not subject to be judged. Right, so if you're following orders, you're not judged because you're following the instructions of a higher order. But if the soldier kills on his own personal account, then he's certainly judged by the court of law. So yeah, if you're in the barracks and you get pissed off at somebody and you kill them, because he did this, you're making a judgment on your own. So that's a good analogy. Whereas the one was, as a unit, you have a duty to follow to fight this war and kill the enemy, as opposed to, or even if, you still go out and you're like, I'm going to be a commando and go out and kill all the men, women, and children in this village. You could be tried for that because it's not a command. You know, the command has particular attacks for a particular purpose, right? You don't just you know, and a good example in the Mahabharata, the Battle of Kurukshetra. Trying to think of his name, Ashwabandha, I think is his name. He was the son of Dronacharya, I think Dronacharya or Kripacharya, one of the two. But there was some situation in the battlefield, I think, with the way that Krishna sanctioned the killing of Dronacharya. And it wasn't by etiquette or rules, but because it was sanctioned by Krishna, it was justified. And so they were given an inside to kill him. But also because the son of Dronacharya was so distraught by the killing of his father, he took it upon himself to go, and the sons of the Pandavas were sleeping, and he decapitated all of them in the middle of the night. And therefore he was judged, because it was even though he was doing it in retaliation, he wasn't fighting as a soldier, and so therefore he was judged. And that's a story in itself. It was, I think he had to walk the earth or something for 5,000 years or some punishment. Yeah, he tried to kill, and then he tried to actually also kill the last son of King Parikshit, who was in the womb of one of the wife of, who was it? One of the kings, I think, in lineage of Yudhishthira. And Krishna protected it. He actually launched a what do we call those? Brahmastra, nuclear, like a nuclear weapon, kind of like that's charged by a Vedic mantras, right? And it's just an extreme weapon of mass destruction, and they were going to launch it on and kill the baby, but Krishna protected the baby and the mother from this attack. And anyway, that was another story. And so text 18. Ganam Ganeyam Pari Janata Trivija Karma Kodana Kalanam Karma Karteti Trivija Karma Sangraha Gananam knowledge, Ganeyam objective, Pari Janata the knower, Trivija three kinds, karma work, Kodana impetus, Karanam the senses, karma work, Karta the doer, Iti thus, Trivijaha three kinds, karma work, Sangraha accumulation. Translation text 18. Knowledge, the object of knowledge and the knower are the three factors which motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer comprise the threefold basis of action. This is another one of those sections where you need like a map to break down things, you know. One day maybe I'll go through these, you know, and do different maps of things. That would be kind of cool, actually. I think, you know, like there's this part in the Srimad Bhagavatam which has a universal layout, and it's very detailed like this. But knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors which motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer comprise the threefold basis of action. So we have what motivates action and what comprise of the threefold basis of action. Okay, I'm going to rely on Bhaktivedanta to explain that a little bit. There are three kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. Okay, that's interesting. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by the human being has these three elements. So we have knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower, and the instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker. Okay, yeah, that's one I want to reflect upon. Maybe you can put it into every activity that you do. So obviously there is some kind of like things that you do to do the work. Like Arjuna might have, he has his weapons to do his work, and the work itself is the fighting on the battlefield, and the worker, of course, is Arjuna, right? So before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. So yeah, the inspiration, right? The inspiration is an interesting word. Inspire, in means to breathe in. Inspire, aspire is to breathe, actually. So to breathe in is to be inspired. So inspired, or take in some kind of inspiration, right? So his inspiration was not to fight in the beginning. It was actually, his inspiration was to not fight, to actually go and do something else. And he wasn't very much inspired by that. But Krishna inspired him to, through a long series of explanations and reflection, to do what he needed to do. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized in a subtle form of work. The work takes the form of action. First, one has to undergo the psychological process of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called impetus. Okay. Right. We think about something, we feel it, and then we act upon it. We're willing to do it. It's very true. You think about things all the time, and then you're like, I don't know if I really want to do it. And then you don't really have the will, to kind of discard that idea. Or, yeah. Actually, the faith to perform acts is called knowledge. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses. So by receiving our instructions by our spiritual master, the inspiration, we utilize our senses in the service of our spiritual master, but we are inspired by our spiritual master, by the words of our spiritual master, which is why it's also really important to listen to your spiritual master every day, some lecture or quotes or whatever, to be inspired to act in Krishna consciousness, or at least to act according to your sadhana bhakti. When the inspiration is there, the worker is there, then the actual activity takes place by the help of the senses. The mind is the center of all senses, and the object is the work itself. These are the different phases of work as described in Bhagavad Gita. The sum total of all activities is called the accumulation of work. That's a pretty amazing thing. I think it may be worth contemplating and doing a little class on what is work, what exactly is work in spiritual life. And another thing, I need to write these things down to remember to do them, because I always say, I'm going to do that, but it's like, text 19, Gananam karma cha karta cha tri daiva guna beta taha prachayate guna shankyane yathavachunu tani api. Gananam, knowledge, karma, work, cha, also, karta, worker, cha, also, trida, three kinds, eva, certainly, guna, bedata, in terms of different modes of material nature, protrate, is said, guna sankyane, in terms of different modes, yatavat, as they act, shru, here, tani, all of them, api, also. Translation, text 19. In accordance with the three modes of material nature, there are three kinds of knowledge, action, and performers of action. Listen as I describe them. Purport. In the 14th chapter, the three divisions of the modes of material nature were elaborately described. In that chapter, it was said that the mode of goodness is illuminating, the mode of passion is materialistic, and the mode of ignorance conducive to laziness and indolence. All the modes of material nature are binding. They are not the sources of liberation. Even in the modes of goodness, one is conditioned. In the 17th chapter, the different types of worship by different types of men in different modes of material nature were described. In this verse, the Lord wishes to speak about the different types of knowledge, workers, and work itself according to the three material modes. So we have gone in through different chapters talking about extensively about these different modes, the different gunas, and how they influence everything from music to food to the way you work, the way you act, so many things, the kinds of species you take on. Very fascinating. So this is going to be about work. So we'll read more. Text 20. Sarva bhutesha yanayikam bhavam avyayam ikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tajgananam vidi satvikam. Sarva bhuteshu. In all living entities, yena, by whom, ekam, one, bhavam, situation, avyayam, imperishable, ikshate, does see, avibhaktam, undivided, vibhakteshu, in the numberless divided, tat, that, gananam, knowledge, vidi, knows, satvikam, in the mode of goodness. Translation, text 20. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existence, undivided in the divided, is knowledge in the mode of goodness. Interesting. A person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. In all living entities, one spirit soul is there, although they have different bodies in terms of their previous work. Okay, so the living entities have done activities in their lives, and so that's why they are given the particular bodies according to their karmic reactions. But the devotee of Krishna understands that in all living entities, the spirit soul is what is animating the body, which is present. Now, that is not to say that, and then it's said in the past that the pure devotee of Krishna who can see all living entities as equal, whether they be a brahmana, a cow, a dog eater, or tiger, or whatever they might be, does not. You don't act the same way because those people are conditioned in the particular body, the modes of wherever they are at. They think they're the tiger or the cow or the dog, or I've got my cat here. Those are all living entities, and you try to help them when you can, but you don't try to relate to them sometimes when you know they're going to act dangerously to you. So that's been said. As described in the 7th chapter, the manifestation of the living force in every body is due to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. Thus, to see that one superior nature, that living force in every body, is to see in the mode of goodness. That living entity is imperishable, although the bodies are perishable. The difference is perceived in terms of the body because there are many forms of material existence in conditional life. Therefore, they appear to be divided. But actually their essence in quality is unified. It's one. It's not divided. That doesn't mean that there is this monistic kind of idea that everybody is God and we're actually one energy. But we are we are simultaneously the one, but we are divided. We are also different. Even as a spirit soul, we are eternally Jivatma. Such impersonal knowledge finally leads to self-realization. Pritak vena tu yaj gananam. Nana bhavan pritag vidan. Veti sarveshu bhuteshu taj jananam vidi rajasham. Pritak vena, because of division. Tu but. Yat gananam, which knowledge. Nana bhavan, multifarious situations. Pritak vidan, differently. Veti, one who knows. Sarveshu, in all. Bhuteshu, living entities. Tat gananam, that knowledge. Vidi, must be known. Rajasam, in terms of passion. Text 21. That knowledge by which a different type of living entity is seen to be dwelling in different bodies is knowledge in the mode of passion. The concept that the material body is the living entity and that with the destruction of the body the consciousness is also destroyed is called knowledge in the mode of passion. According to that knowledge, bodies differ from one another because of the development of different types of consciousness. Otherwise, there is no separate soul which manifests consciousness. The body is itself the soul, and there is no separate soul beyond this body. According to such knowledge, consciousness is temporary, or else there are no individual souls, but there is an all-pervading soul, which is full of knowledge, and this body is a manifestation of temporary ignorance. Or beyond this body, there is no special individual or supreme soul. All such conceptions are considered products of the mode of passion. Text 22. Yatu Krishnavad Ekashmin Kare Shaktam Ahaitukam Atat Vartad Vad Alpam Cha Tat Tamasam Udaritam. Yat, that which, to, but, Krishnavad, in all in all, Ekashmin, in one, Kare, work, Shaktam, attached, Ahaitukam, without cause, Atatva Atartavat, without reality, Alpamcha, and very meager, Tat, that, Tamasam, in the mode of darkness, Udaritam, is spoken. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Purport: that the knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance, because every living entity is conditional life. Inconditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. So actually that, without scriptural injunctions or anything like that, people who, even if you're very knowledgeable in material scientific, you're considered to be in the mode of ignorance, because you relate everything to the body, and the body is a set of chemicals that interact, and you are a chemical reaction, and when the body is dead, you are gone. That's the mode of ignorance right there. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the directions of the scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Yes, God is their money. And it's very interesting because in the Bible there's a commandment that says you shall have no other idols beside me. And what that means is, I think what people often confused, they think, they see Krishna or they see the deities and they think, well, that's an idol and it's not God. But it is God, and it's a Arka Vigraham. It's the Archanam, it's the deity in the temple, and what that means in the law of Moses is that you should not have things that are not God, but that is God, And sometimes people will, like for example, they made a golden calf and worshiped the golden calf, but it was symbolic of money and materialistic desire. And so people make materialism as their golden calf, as their idol. that they worship as God. They see it as God. They don't worship God, God in his true sense. They worship their God as money, right? And this is why dapaha is translated sometimes as pride, sometimes as arrogance. And if I can go back to this idea of like the Pride Month, where people are glorifying this, materialism. It is darpaha. It is pride. It is arrogance. It is a false attachment to the idea that the body or the mind or anything that goes on in the mind, about identity or whatever, is somehow going to be their God, is going to bring them salvation and happiness. And actually, oftentimes, they've corrupted now the Christian church, which is saying, oh yeah, it's all good. Jesus is a homosexual and he had 12 disciples and all kinds of offensive things. But it's not. It's not. This is where for the mode of ignorance, people in the mode of ignorance think that their God is, in their arrogance, in their dapaha, they are very proud of this idea that they can be what they're not, but they have no understanding. They're trying to, either they're not reading the scriptures correctly or having a teacher who's teaching them correctly. A lot of times they're trying to twist the words of scripture and say, well, no, actually what Jesus means or Jesus never said anything about homosexuality or therefore it's okay. Really crazy shit. It's like, doesn't make any sense. But that is the nature of Kali Yuga. Everything is going to be flipped around. Everything is going to be backwards. And, as they would say in the Christian faith, even Satan can quote scripture, So the demoniac will use this because they're in the mode of ignorance and they want people to be in the mode of ignorance. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. So there's no validity in it whatsoever. It's completely wrong. There's no relative truth. There's nothing like that. They're living in a very sinful life that will cause them to engage in great suffering, and it's unfortunate, really. It's terrible. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It's less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals. Yeah, they're even, they even say that. They'll be like, well, there are these kind of frogs, and the frogs have a homosexual relationship. Therefore, but it's like, if you know anything about consciousness, you understand that, okay, well, maybe the animals do this, but they're in a lower mode of ignorance, mode of passion, consciousness that makes them think that they're definitely the body and that they can just do whatever, we eat, sleep, mate, and defend, but we have the capacity to inquire about the absolute truth. This is the human form of life. And it is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. That's what they know how to do very good, but they don't consider the spiritual inquiry. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. And Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is just called humans in modern society as polished animals. They just look very good, They eat really well, they sleep well, they mate well, they defend well, but they don't really inquire about their essence of what their purpose of their life is. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness, and knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is a product of the mode of passion, and knowledge concerned with only keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. There we have it, right there, from the mouth of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Just absolute truth, Okay, we'll read one more verse. Niyatam sangarahitam Actually, it's going to be another. They set it up they have it in the Bhagavad Gita where they talk about the activities in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So I'm going to actually stop at 22, and we'll start again next time at text 23. So thank you very much. Namaste.